Major news! Square has just lost $2 billion and it's in major trouble. What's the reason? Final Fantasy 16 sales numbers. Why do outlets make headlines like these? Oh yeah, they need clicks to drive people to their website. I mean, it's business 101. Still, when I saw this headline before even reading the article, which actually does cover most of the stuff truthfully, I rolled my eyes so hard and even posted this little tweet right here. This is due to the last 3 years of Square making bad decisions, not the Final Fantasy 16 sales. Of course, a lot of people don't read the articles, just the titles, and boom, you start to see posts like, see, Final Fantasy 16 did bad, and oh damn, that sucks, guess it failed. Luckily, a decent amount of people did see through this BS and actually read the article and made posts about it. However, this still begs the question, what the F is going on at Square, and what is the cause of this? Then finally, how can they right this ship? Because clearly they need to make some better choices when it comes to this stuff. Lots of questions to talk about, so let's dive into it. Hey everyone, Tallen here with Direct Gaming. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, I want to say thank you for watching. We hope you enjoy. To our returning viewers and subs, it's great to see you all again this time as well. As always, we look forward to your comments down below on the topic of today's video and look forward to reading them. If you enjoy the content, a like on the video and a sub to the channel would also help us out a ton. It's free as always. Okay, let's get started. Okay, where to even start with a big topic like this? Well, let's take a look at Square Enix for the past few years. They have not been making some good choices here. NFTs, Marvel's Avengers, Forspoken, you know, that awesome critically acclaimed game and everything like that. Sarcasm. All right, with all honesty, let's start at the beginning. NFTs, well, attempts / crypto market. I know everyone's rolling their eyes. We're tired of talking about it. It is what it is. But Square for quite a few years was always like, yes, we are going headlong first into this stuff. And it's been a major flop. They've had absolutely nothing to show for it. I mean, it is literally the definition of throwing money into the fire. Need I say more? Moving on to the next one. The next one obviously is Marvel's Avengers. Now, this game, while it did get completed and released and everything like that, it unfortunately had quite a few problems. Problem number one was actually focusing too much on the microtransaction side of things. They had Crystal Dynamics come in, who's mostly known for their first player games, to make a live service game. Now, Marvel's Avengers did have a single player portion to it, but it was mainly meant to be something akin to something like Destiny, where you go back into the missions and everything played over and over again and buy cosmetics and everything like that. That's what they wanted it to do. And yeah, most people are like, okay, I mean, the single player was decent, but I'm done now and you're out. They had to do a lot of fixes in the early days. A lot of the DLC was pushed back, and the prices were crazy when it came to the store, not to mention the XP boosters, which they promised they wouldn't do when they initially announced the game. So obviously just a lot of bad faith and people just left the game. And of course, after Square sold most of their Western studios, they basically stopped support for this game, and you can find it now online for like $2 if you want to. So if you want to try the game out, you can, but overall, Marvel's Avengers, at least in the eyes of both the players and shareholders and everything, was overall a flop. Sure, they probably made a decent amount of money with some of the microtransactions in the beginning, but overall, not what they were hoping for. Speaking of another live service game that is now canceled, we have Final Fantasy VII First Soldier, which is a mobile game. It's basically a battle royale set in Final Fantasy VII with people you don't even know, basically. Like, it's all before Sephiroth and Cloud and everything like that. So, and it was only on mobile, which, to be fair, actually might have actually done decently well on consoles, because again, it was a free-to-play game and it was supported by microtransactions and everything, but it's already shut down. Like, the game is not even 2 years old at this point, if I remember correctly, and it's done already. So, okay, that's another flop right there for Square. Coming in at the third live service game. I'm starting to notice a trend here, Square. Babylon's Fall, made by the one and only Platinum Games, best known for, again, their single-player games like Bayonetta, for example, and other great games, obviously. And they came in and made Babylon's Fall, and holy crap, I'm pretty sure this game set records for how to just kill a game so fast, especially a live service game, which again just kind of points to the fact that maybe people don't have as much time as all these companies want to play live service games, because again, it eats up so much time, and also the game will just really wasn't that great, especially when you compare it to other Platinum game standards. this was at the bottom of the barrel, basically. So that game has failed again as well. Going on to another game. Don't worry, it's not a live service though. It is Forspoken. Oh boy, where do we even start with Forspoken? Terrible reviews, the mediocre gameplay. At least in the beginning, the story. Anyone ever used the word cringe too many times? Because I swear the internet needs to learn a few new words. Now, to be fair to Forspoken, just a teeny bit, just a tiny microscopic bit, the original story and world was actually supposed to be very different from the final product. I don't know exactly who came in and said, no, don't do this, rewrite the entire thing, but basically, if we had have gotten the original version of the game that the original developers wanted to make, it actually might have been better. Maybe they focused on a little bit of a smaller open world instead of the gigantic one we got. Obviously, less cringe dialogue. I'm tired of using the word cringe. I'm going to try and find something else myself now. But regardless, it didn't work out the best. Now, I'm not saying that this is the excuse that we need to give it all a big break and go buy it or anything like that. But Square obviously did not have confidence in the product, and a lot of things had to be changed. Again, whether if some people simply left the company or Square came in and said, hey, look, we're adding this person to your team and they're ahead of you now. Who's to say, especially? And it also doesn't help, as it's kind of a side note going off of Forspoken, that Square simply tries to compare everything, and I mean everything, to Final Fantasy VII. If it does not surpass Final Fantasy VII, then it is a fail. I mean, we're looking at anything from like The World Ends With You, aka Neo The World Ends With You, which was an amazing game, by the way. We have a full review from a couple years on it, and I'm actually replaying it to do a video on it in 2023. But if it doesn't reach certain numbers, obviously Square is gonna think it's a failure. But they made a comment that I honestly, again, rolled my eyes when they're like, it didn't, reach up to Final Fantasy VII expectations. It's like, you really think a smaller game like Neo The World Ends With You, which again is, for the most part, everyone really likes, has mostly positive reviews, is going to surpass something like Final Fantasy VII? Stop focusing on that and try to focus on at least some of your smaller games, I would say. Have the proper marketing and everything, because it basically didn't have any marketing when it comes to this. And actually focus on promoting it, and maybe eventually it will hit that kind of thing. But considering the fact that the very first game was out on the DS over 10 plus years ago, and now you've made this game, which again is a great game, but you don't have there's no connection in terms of the marketing. There's no lead up to it or anything like that. That's not gonna help your game. So of course it's not gonna do well. I'm starting to already see a pattern that Square's not the best at marketing. So maybe it's time to hire some good marketing people. And finally, the last thing to talk about, which isn't like hurting them, I would say, but there have been some show in the numbers as of recently, and I'm talking about Final Fantasy XIV. Obviously ignoring the initial launch of the game and then the developers that come out and basically say, look, we are sorry, we're gonna remake this game from the ground up, which they did, and now Final Fantasy VII is awesome. It's amazing, top tier game, the whole 9 yards. However, and I'm not saying this as a player, because obviously the game is doing amazing. Numbers wise, remember, looking at it from a business aspect, it has been stagnant in some months because it's not something like other live service games where they try to have 3 to 4 months of content every single time. I'm not saying that's a bad thing in terms of a player. I don't think they have a problem with us going and playing other games. But on the business side of things, if stagnant numbers for however long, be it a month, 2 months, 5 months, however long, in a live service game, that's not the greatest. Basically, stagnant numbers for too long equals bad for shareholders. I know we as gamers and consumers hate hearing about that and don't care about that, but that's what they care about, because if they're not making the money they expect, then that means other projects get dropped. So obviously, while Final Fantasy XIV is not dying or anything, it's not losing them a ton of money, and it obviously gets their players back when huge DLC drops and everything. There are some parts to it that are not the greatest in terms, again, as the numbers. So that's the last 3 years of Square. Where are they currently right now? Well, as of 2023, aka this year, Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are the two big games. Final Fantasy XVI has obviously already released. It released back in June to actually pretty good numbers. It sold over 3 million copies in less than its first week, which is pretty good, right? And only on one console, aka the PS5. However, there are some people saying like, that's not exactly the greatest, right? Well, let's compare something, right? Let's compare something to a bigger game that everyone universally has said, yes, absolute success. That is God of War Ragnarok. You know, that one little game on Sony's console and everything like that. It sold 5.1 million copies on its launch week on the PS5 and the PS4. So again, that's pretty good for God of War. Awesome numbers right there. But that was on 2 consoles, and one of those consoles is pretty popular, especially the last 5 to 6 years, aka the PS4. Final Fantasy 16 did not release on that console, it only released on the PS5. The 3 million copies sold on a console that's a little difficult to find, at least up until earlier this year in 2023. Nowadays, you can actually find it in the stores. That's actually pretty good. Not to mention something like the demo definitely helped, so more of this, developers. So overall, Final Fantasy 16 actually doing pretty good, right? And later on this week, we're at least expecting to see Final Fantasy VII Rebirth news, because at the time of this recording, in less than 24 hours, we're supposed to see a state of play from Sony focusing on indie games and third-party games, aka something like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And obviously, we have the Tokyo Game Show coming up next week at this time of this recording, and it's expected to release in early 2024. So around January, if the rumors are to be believed. If you want to keep up to date on all of the state of play stuff, make sure you sub to the channel and we'll keep you up to date as best we can. So we have Final Fantasy 16, which is actually sold pretty well. It's got a PC version coming out pretty soon. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out early next year. And those games generally done pretty well. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one, did pretty well. And so, yeah, that's pretty good for them. So why are these outlets saying 2 billion gone and Square in panic mode while blaming Final Fantasy 16 numbers? Well, it's because Final Fantasy 16 alone is not enough to pick up the slack from all these other bad business decisions and gaming decisions. NFTs? Yeah, that's literally, again, throwing money into the fire. Marvel's Avengers? They picked the wrong team to make a live service game, aka Crystal Dynamics is best known for their single player games, and they focused too much on the microtransactions. Forspoken? Well, from the lackluster world to the story and all of that kind of stuff did not help save this game at all, not to mention, again, not the greatest of marketing. So yeah, 3+ years of just Final Fantasy 14 to hold the company up, which again, for a live service game is not as consistent as shareholders want, then yeah, Final Fantasy 16 was never going to right the wrongs. It was never just gonna all of a sudden fix everything and bring everything up into the green and out of the red. That is so unrealistic, which again, to the credit of some of these articles, if you actually read the article, it tells you that. But again, their headlines don't. Again, the whole clickbait and all that kind of stuff, right? Final Fantasy 16 was never going to make over 100 million sold in its first week. No game does that in its first week. Sure, games have now reached those kind of numbers, above something like Minecraft, but those were released years ago, and I mean years and years ago. So it's just not realistic to kind of look at that. The honest truth is, Square is dealing with the consequences of its last 3+ years and doing things like NFTs and too many live service games, aka following the trends and not working on their own IPs. I mean, heck, instead of NFTs, why not have Crystal Dynamics work on a new Tomb Raider game? Or go to them and ask, hey, what would you like to make now? When developers are allowed to make the games that they want, it usually does well and will make you lots of money. Of course, it's a little late for that now because you kind of sold them. Or how about some of the other properties you could have gone to and tried to make either remakes or try to rebuild spiritual successors to other games? Well, again, you can't do that now because you sold them again. Jesus, Square. I don't know who's in charge of Square at this moment. I have my assumptions, but you need to either fire them or they need to really get their priorities in check, which unfortunately to some is going to mean pleasing the shareholders. If you want to know more about Square as a business in terms of how they work here in Japan and everything, check out a video in the top right corner where we talk about Square and Xbox not working the greatest together. A lot of that covers work culture and what it's like to be a company here in Japan. And there's some surprising stuff in there that you might want to check out. So again, check it out in the top right corner. We'll leave it in the description as well. And let us know your thoughts. Another thing I think they really need to work on is marketing your games better. Neo: The World Ends With You, a game I brought up in the beginning of the video, is an amazing game, but you did very little marketing and just said, here you go, let's see how it does. Seriously, it is a great game. Go play it. You can pick it up on PS4 or play it on your PS5. You can even play it on the Switch on the go for less than $20, especially if you get it on sale. You can probably get it for even less. It's a great game, but Square refuses to give it the proper time and shine and the marketing to actually make these games. I know marketing costs money, but again, if it's going to be between marketing a game that can cost you X amount of money or literally throwing money into a fire pit with NFTs and cryptocurrencies, come on, seriously, just get over it. I could keep going on and on, but I think you get the point. Square, you need to improve. But don't think for one second that this is Final Fantasy 16's fault. It sold very well, and with a PC port on the way, like I said before, it will sell even more. Also, to the release the game on Game Pass crowd, Square does not really like Game Pass for its initial releases. It loses them revenue. It's already been proven that for big AAA companies and everything, Game Pass will lose them money. So we could see it later on Game Pass or on Xbox and everything, because again, I talked about that in the other video in the top right corner, where Square and Sony and Xbox and the whole dynamic there and everything like that. So we could eventually see it there, but don't ever expect big AAA games like this from certain people on day one Game Pass. It loses too much money for them. I think right now, though, Square, you need to focus on your games, let the right teams make those games, give them the time that they need, and actually market your games responsibly. Leave the live service games and NFT/crypto BS behind. If you actually want to make a good live service game, though, you're going to need a lot of time to figure that out, because guess what? Very few live service games have actually worked out in the long run. So don't think you can just throw it onto something and boom, you're going to make billions of dollars. It doesn't work that way. Plus, not to mention players' time. A lot of people don't have time to play multiple live service games. So you've got to make sure yours is the best of the best before you even try to release something. Take the L on these and move on. Okay, I think we've rambled long enough. But now I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Leave us a like if you enjoyed the video, and we'll try to reply to as many comments as we possibly can. I've been Tallen with Direct Gaming. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. And again, what are your thoughts? Do you think Square can right the ships? Hard to say. Let's hope that they can. Anyway, thanks again for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next one. Johnny.